I refuse to deal with Amazon anymore. Every time I would try to call, it's like a headache and a headache and a headache. I had an earlier product that was successful like 10 years ago, my first ever. After the subprime mortgage crunch, there was a lot of tools available online to do like market research and things. So I came up with the product, became successful, and then I got counterfeited. And I spent like about 5.5 years in court learning a lot. It was the days 10 years ago where Amazon was becoming very popular. It's very efficient if you do get it right. Although in the great days when we just launched the gardening product, everybody in China and their grandmother's cat was counterfeiting me. I was on page 83 of like, those 25
Ouch.
products per page. I was on page 83. No one's going to go through 80 pages because they need the original. I sent containers there, Stephen.
On the launch?
Yeah, because we were growing so fast.
Wow.
I said, okay, you got to strike while the iron's hot or grow
Yeah.
slowly. While the meantime, because they have a seasonal product, no one's buying garden gloves or anything like that. So you have about March 1st to Mother's Day, 8 weeks, or you have about 5, 6 weeks in the Christmas season. So other than that, no one's buying gloves. Meanwhile, everyone's getting their artillery ready against me because I already had the radar on the market as a bestseller. This is my gloves here. It's gardening gloves with claws.
Amazon bestseller garden gloves right there, guys. Check out what Aaron pulled off. Not very many Amazon sellers have ever had a bestseller, and that's fantastic. So congrats on that. How did it feel to accomplish what you did and then fall off a cliff?
You have to make thousands of decisions, and I was glad to know that I was right on most of them. Nike, Adidas with 200 lawyers with sharp teeth. Nobody wants to do that.
You always want to get the bestseller, but the second you do, somebody starts ripping you off and replicating the product, and then your success starts to dwindle. And so
Yes.
that product life cycle used to be 2 years, but today it's even shorter, and the ability for the Chinese to get products live. What did you learn along this process that others may appreciate?
If you can't defend yourself or your product, then it's not your product. You have to
Yeah.
make sure that the product is commercially viable and you're marketing it effectively.
What else did you learn?
If you're going to defend yourself, you're going to go all the way, then you have to know how the counterfeiters think. And you have to understand the different tiers of counterfeiters. Without understanding that, you're not going to be able to know what's likely their next move. And because of that, you're not going to be able to take measures in stopping them or collecting from them. In other words, making them pay. If you're moving units, China knows you're moving units. There's different tiers of counterfeiters. There's the ones who are just mom and pop selling out of the garage, whatever the copy, ad copy, and the photos, they put it on, and that's the lowest tier. In my lawsuit, I had a TRO. I froze 1,184 accounts. That was the first round for Garden Genie. Froze. Amazon, Alibaba, Wish, Lush, Walmart, anything you could think of. All the ones, foreign sellers and local sellers who are selling in US. That particular case was for a trademark infringement, but that was the IP was a trademark, not a patent. It was a temporary restraining order. Usually that's used for domestic cases. That's where people know it from, but it's extended to intellectual property. And what that does is very similar to an injunction where you can stop them from using it, freeze their accounts, and if they're selling in the US, and the TRO is a very practical way to have power. Because if they were local sellers selling in the US, like US based sellers selling in the US, the court system would say, doesn't work for a TRO. Chase them individually in court. They freeze the accounts.
Mhm.
They hold the amounts and they have all the information, they have all the person's address, they're all that stuff.
What are the core 1, 2, 3 punches would you recommend sellers really adopt strongly?
Marketing is the most important thing. You have to keep an eye on your costs versus benefits. Amazon's going to keep bouncing around with their fee structure, their algorithm, and competitors. You have to be able to set yourself apart and make sure that your products work. As far as to do the 1, 2, 3, you need to keep an eye on your costs, your competitors, and put your view in the consumer's eye. How's that going to look to them? And then understand your consumer. The purchases are done on the hand device. The way that it's presented to them, the A plus content, you have premium and all those different contents. If you're going to present a product, you want to make sure that you're understanding the competitors and then presenting your way to your viewer in the way that makes sense to them to say click, and never give them more than like 2 seconds to think about it.
You're really impacting home why I've been pushing click through rate for the last 3 years as an agency because of the swipe culture, because you have 2 seconds to even earn the click to begin with, let alone before they even get to the listing. I think somebody listening to this is going to say, okay, yeah, Aaron is super advanced. He's got 40 pending patents, more than that, and he's in multi countries. And I haven't done that yet. How do I get started?
First, let me tell you the reason why I did that. I wasn't able to come to terms with dealing with Amazon, interfacing with them directly. I wanted to hire the best in the world, and I think it's you. Once I have that, I have a responsibility first as a brand owner to scale as early and as quickly as possible. This is my responsibility. If I can't afford it, I'm not doing it right. The other thing is, if I'm depending on you to do your job, you can't do your job unless I can protect the market that I'm creating, because I'm creating a demand for this. It's a brand new product, right? So if I'm doing that, other people who notice it is going to jump on. Once they jump on, what am I going to do with regardless how good you are?
It'll be a shorter product life cycles. I think you've really impacted
Yep.
that the protection of that product cycle needs to be long tenured, because why put through all
Right.
the hard work if you don't get the long payout? Thank you.
People are incentivized to do what they do, and they're the best at it. This is the way it is. The price is the price. And if it's not worth it, why would I do it? It is worth it for sure. But even if you are the best at the best, if the market is so polluted, you can't perform. If I don't
I agree.
protect the IP, there's 1,000 competitors. We have 1,000 more problems. Now, what was tantalizing to me on this particular market was that in the posture correction world, it's a very large market. That's what I go for. I go for a very large market. And then I look through the trends and the products and I look for a gap. Once I find a gap, and then I'll look through the patents on what I can protect. Once I find something that is commercially viable, I know I could make it at a certain price point. I know I can ship it. It's not too big. It's not too voluminous or heavy. Shipping's not going to be. I look for deal breakers first. All the deal breakers are out. We go into prototyping, iterations, and once I get on the market, and then I rely on my patent to be protected. I keep looking at the feedback from the users on how I'm going to evolve the product, and then I'll get more and more and more stakes in the ground, widening that contiguous real estate in that space as it basically expands into the evolutions of the product and then the different iterations. At this point, it doesn't matter what I think. It's the customers that are going to tell me it sucks, it's great.
If I know nothing about patents, but I have a product idea, how do I start that product patent research? Is there a guy you'd recommend talking to, or how do I start that?
Suppose you know the Amazon or the helium or the landscape of that market. You know that you have something that's likely to work. Best thing to do is describe it, look hard for it in terms of SSL searches to articles or web searches, patent searches. Go to google.patents.com, just like Google Maps or Google whatever. They have a patent section. They've made it very easy. Check all of them. That'll do 90% of the search, 80% if you're not great at it, or 70. If you find anything, then that's an obstacle. You should be happy that you found the deal breaker as early as possible. Do not get emotionally attached. People get attached emotionally, and it's like a very bad thing for them to do that because it prevents them from seeing clearly the obstacles. First thing you want to do is look for deal breakers. In this case, doesn't matter. You have to be as clear-sighted as possible to say, you're right. It is going to cost this much to make, and I can only sell it for this much, and there's not enough of a margin. I have to scrap it or find another way to make that idea work. And the best way to do that is with a patent search. Before I file the patents, I have a professional do it. I have the best guys in the world, kanalysis.com, and they're also with K Analysis in India, and they're in the Forbes India. These guys are great. They do 1,000 patent block contract. The last thing you want to do is miss something, file for the patent, they grant it, And then that one thing that you missed kills your case in court when you're defending yourself.